Elvis was signing autographs after his Las Vegas show when a woman handed him a faded photograph instead of a program. The image showed a young soldier, and what Elvis whispered when he saw it made his entire security team freeze. It was March 22nd, 1974, at the Las Vegas Hilton, and Elvis had just finished the final show of a grueling 2-week residency. He was exhausted, his voice hoarse from singing 8 shows in 5 days. The weight he'd gained was bothering him, and the pills he'd taken to get through the performance were making him feel disconnected from reality. But Elvis never refused to meet his fans after a show. Never. As he worked his way through the crowd gathered by the stage door, signing everything from cocktail napkins to photographs of himself from the 1950s, an elderly woman in her late 60s approached. She wasn't pushing forward like the other fans. She was standing quietly at the edge of the crowd, holding something against her chest. Something about her stillness caught Elvis's attention. "Ma'am," Elvis called out to her, "did you want me to sign something?" The woman slowly approached, and Elvis noticed her hands were trembling. She wasn't holding a magazine or a record. She was holding a small, creased photograph that looked like it had been carried in a wallet for decades. Without saying a word, she handed Elvis the photograph. It showed a young man in a military uniform, probably early 20s, with a bright smile and hopeful eyes. The photo was dated March 1958 on the back, written in faded pencil. Elvis stared at the photograph, and his face went completely white. "Is this," Elvis's voice cracked, "is this who I think it is?" The woman nodded, tears already streaming down her face. "His name was James Mitchell. You knew him in Germany." Elvis's security team noticed the change in his demeanor immediately. Joe Esposito stepped closer, concerned. "Elvis, everything okay?" But Elvis wasn't listening. He was looking at that photograph like it was a ghost from his past come back to haunt him. To understand what happened next, you need to understand something about Elvis's time in Germany during his military service from 1958 to 1960. Elvis had been drafted at the height of his fame. He was the biggest star in America, and suddenly he was just another soldier, living in barracks, taking orders, doing what he was told. For many young men, military service was a challenge. For Elvis, it was both terrifying and oddly liberating. In Germany, Elvis met James Mitchell, a 23-year-old private from Iowa who'd enlisted to escape a difficult family situation. James was quiet, artistic, and completely out of place in the military. While other soldiers spent their free time drinking and chasing girls, James spent his time writing poetry and sketching in a journal he carried everywhere. The other soldiers made fun of James constantly. They called him weak, strange, too sensitive for military life. Some were outright cruel, stealing his journal, mocking his poetry, pushing him around during drills. Elvis saw what was happening, and it reminded him of his own childhood. The teasing, the feeling of being different, the pain of not fitting in. One evening in the barracks, Elvis found James sitting alone on his bunk, holding his journal. Someone had torn several pages out and thrown them in the garbage. James was quietly crying, trying to tape the pages back together. "They don't understand you," Elvis said, sitting down beside him, "but that doesn't mean what you're doing isn't valuable." James looked up, surprised that Elvis Presley was talking to him. "They think I'm weird." "Good," Elvis said firmly. "Weird means you're not like everyone else, and being like everyone else is the most boring thing you can be." From that night on, Elvis made it his mission to protect James. He ate meals with him, included him in activities, and made it clear to the other soldiers that anyone who messed with James would answer to him. When you're Elvis Presley, even in the military, people listen. James and Elvis became close friends. They'd stay up late talking about music, art, and what they wanted to do after their service ended. James shared his poetry with Elvis, and Elvis shared his fears about whether his career would survive his time away from performing. "You're going to be fine," James told him one night. "You're Elvis Presley. People don't forget talent like yours." "But what about you?" Elvis asked. "What are you going to do when we get out of here?" James smiled, that hopeful smile that would later be captured in the photograph. "I'm going to write, really write. Poetry, maybe novels. I'm going to create something beautiful that helps people feel less alone." Elvis made James promise him something that night. "Promise me you'll never let anyone tell you that your art doesn't matter. Promise me you'll keep creating no matter what," James promised. 2 weeks before they were both scheduled to finish their service and return home, James was assigned to a routine patrol in a training exercise near the Czech border. It was supposed to be safe, just a standard operation. But something went wrong. James's unit encountered an unexploded ordnance from World War II. In the chaos that followed, James was killed instantly. He was 25 years old. Elvis was devastated. He blamed himself for not being there, for not protecting his friend the way he'd promised he would. The military held a service, and Elvis attended, but he couldn't bring himself to speak. He just stood there, crying, holding James's journal that had been returned to him along with his other personal effects. The guilt and grief from James's death haunted Elvis for years. He rarely talked about it, even with close friends. It was a pain he kept locked away, a reminder that even Elvis Presley couldn't protect everyone he cared about. Now, 16 years later, standing outside the Las Vegas Hilton with James's photograph in his hands, all of that pain came flooding back. "I'm James's mother," the woman said quietly. "Margaret Mitchell. I've been trying to find a way to talk to you for years, but I never had the courage." Elvis's legs felt weak. Joe Esposito moved to support him, but Elvis waved him off. "Mrs. Mitchell, Elvis couldn't find the words. "I'm so sorry. I should have been there. I should have protected him." Margaret shook her head gently. "Mr. Presley, that's not why I'm here." She reached into her purse and pulled out a small, worn notebook. Elvis recognized it immediately. It was James's poetry journal, the one he'd carried everywhere. "After James died," Margaret said, "the military returned his belongings to us. This journal was in his things. I couldn't bring myself to read it for years. The pain was too much. But last year, on what would have been his 41st birthday, I finally opened it." Margaret's voice broke. "Do you know what I found?" Elvis shook his head, tears streaming down his face. "I found pages and pages about you, about how you saved his life during those 2 years in Germany. Not literally, but emotionally. He wrote about how you made him feel like he mattered, how you protected him, how you believed in his art when everyone else mocked it." Margaret opened the journal to a page marked with a ribbon. "I want to read you something he wrote 2 days before he died." She cleared her throat and read, "Elvis told me tonight that I have to promise to never stop creating. He made me swear that no matter what happens, I'll keep writing, keep making art, keep being myself. I promised him, but the truth is, he's already given me something more important than that promise. He's given me the belief that my life has meaning, that being different isn't weakness, that my sensitivity is strength. If I die tomorrow, I'll die knowing that Elvis Presley, the biggest star in the world, saw something valuable in James Mitchell from Iowa. And if he could see it, maybe it's real." The crowd around them had gone completely silent. Even the fans who'd been clamoring for autographs were now standing still, watching this private moment unfold. Elvis broke down completely. His security team had never seen him like this, not even after his mother died. "Mrs. Mitchell," Elvis sobbed, "I failed him. I wasn't there when he needed me most." "No," Margaret said firmly, taking Elvis's hands in hers. "You gave my son 2 years of happiness in a life that had very little of it. You made him feel valued. You made him feel safe. You gave him the confidence to be himself. Do you know what gift that is? Do you understand how rare that is?" Margaret pressed the journal into Elvis's hands. "I came here tonight to thank you, and to give you this. James would want you to have it. He'd want you to know that you kept your promise to him even if he couldn't keep his." What Elvis did next surprised everyone who knew him. He asked Margaret if she would come to his dressing room. Once there, away from the crowd, Elvis spent 2 hours reading through James's journal, every poem, every sketch, every word. And then Elvis made a decision that would change both of their lives. Mrs. Mitchell, Elvis said, these poems are beautiful, really beautiful. Has anyone ever seen them besides you and me? Margaret shook her head. I didn't know what to do with them. I'm just his mother. I'm not a publisher or an editor. I want to publish them, Elvis said. I want the world to see what James created. I want people to know his name. In the weeks that followed, Elvis used his connections in the entertainment industry to find a publisher for James's poetry. He wrote the foreword himself, describing James as one of the most talented and bravest people I ever knew. The book, titled Different Is Not Weakness, The Poetry of James Mitchell, was published in October 1974. Elvis personally funded the entire project and ensured that all proceeds went to Margaret Mitchell. The book became a surprise success, particularly among young people who felt different or misunderstood. James's poetry spoke to the same outsiders and misfits that Elvis's music had always reached. But more importantly, it gave Margaret Mitchell something she'd lost when her son died. It gave her purpose. She began speaking at high schools and colleges about James's life, about the importance of protecting sensitive young people, about the damage that bullying and mockery can cause. She became an advocate for mental health awareness in the military, working to ensure that soldiers who struggled emotionally weren't ignored or ridiculed. Elvis and Margaret stayed in touch until Elvis's death in 1977. She was one of the few non-family members invited to his private funeral at Graceland. Years later, Margaret Mitchell was asked in an interview what she thought Elvis's greatest contribution to the world was. "Everyone will say his music," Margaret replied, "and his music was extraordinary. But for me, Elvis's greatest gift was his ability to see people, really see them, not just the surface, but the person underneath. He saw my son when no one else did. He saw a frightened, sensitive boy, and he made that boy feel like he mattered. How many lives could be saved if more people did that?" Today, the James Mitchell Poetry Foundation, established with funds from the book's continued sales, provides grants to young poets and artists who feel marginalized or misunderstood. It has helped thousands of young people pursue their creative dreams. The foundation's motto, taken from something Elvis told James in Germany, reads, "Different is not weakness." The story of Elvis and James Mitchell reminds us that sometimes the most important thing we can do for another person is simply to see them, to believe in them, and to make them feel like their existence matters. Elvis couldn't save James from the accident that took his life, but he saved him in a different way, in a way that lasted long after both of them were gone. He saved him by making him believe that being James Mitchell was enough. And in doing so, Elvis left a legacy that had nothing to do with gold records or sold-out concerts. He left a legacy of human kindness, of seeing the value in people that others overlooked. That's the real magic of Elvis Presley. Not the voice, not the moves, not the fame. It was his ability to make people feel seen. And sometimes, that's all any of us really need. If this story of friendship, loss, and the power of seeing people's true value moved you, make sure to subscribe and share this video with someone who needs to hear that being different is not weakness. Have you ever had someone in your life who made you feel seen when everyone else overlooked you? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to hit that notification bell for more powerful true stories about the heart behind music's greatest legends.